Greg Rich is the CEO of Vivantio, a leading provider of service management software, empowering businesses to streamline operations and deliver exceptional customer experiences. In this episode, you will learn about Greg's unique journey from a family-run retirement community to leading a global enterprise. You'll discover how his early experiences shaped his perspective on customer service and the pivotal moment that inspired his passion for blending service excellence with advanced technology, including the integration of AI into his industry. Greg shares his insights on the impact of human connections in technology and how his 2-decade-long commitment to Vivantio is revolutionizing the landscape of customer-centric solutions.
I grew up in Saudi. My parents, my mum was Irish, my dad was Welsh, and they moved to Saudi when they were quite young and worked for Aramco there, both in engineering and in nursing. And so I was born in Ireland, but then moved back to Saudi for sort of 5 or 6 years before moving over to the UK. And when they came back, part of that process was to start their own business, and they bought and built a residential home in Weston-super-Mare down in Somerset, and we grew up there. As a family, that was our life. And then very early on, 13, 14, as you could do in the early 80s, got involved in the family business and kind of helped out, managing and running that home on weekends and evenings and that kind of thing. So, and it gave me. It was a very different perspective, I suppose, to most 13-year-olds at the time, working in that type of environment, a caring environment. And I think, clearly rubbed off because I'm, 40 years later, I'm still doing the same thing, essentially, maybe not with the elderly, but customer service is still a significant part of my life. That's what I enjoy doing. That's what kind of gets me out of bed. That's what drives me. And everything else that I do around that is to help enable and do those things. So I think that was the stepping stone into that kind of customer care world.
Yeah. So customer care is in the genes or the DNA, but the
DNA.
Yeah. But the entrepreneurial blood runs through your veins, and I'm wondering. Your parents were entrepreneurs. You were lucky enough to grow up with parents that had a business, because most people, when they get to working age or below working age, want to make some money. They don't have that kind of thing that they can go into and help out and make a bit of extra cash. But I'm assuming you were kind of working in there, but also kind of looking around and paying attention and going, hey, I like this. I see this needs fixing. You had that kind of entrepreneurial brain. And I'm wondering what was going through your head when you're working in this retirement home at a young age. What were you seeing that was sticking with you?
I don't think it happened that early on in my career, to be honest with you. I never really thought like that. I was just enjoying working in that environment and just talking to people and just spending time with people and just trying to make their lives a little bit, more comfortable, especially in their elder years. I didn't think, and in fact, as I got to sort of 17, 18 years old, my parents came to me and said, look, as you come out of college, would you like to take the business on? Would you like us to train you, in management? And at the time I was like, no, don't think so. Running a business and being in the business at that point were two different things. I enjoyed being part of it, but then stepping back into that kind of operational role wasn't something that really attracted me very early on. And then I suppose two things happened. So that was just my mindset, as a kid, I guess. But I still like the customer care side. So I ended up working in Bristol for a software company that developed financial services solutions, working on their help desk. I saw that as an extension of the role in terms of customer care, customer support. And that was really where I then got integrated or introduced to technology. That was the first time. This is, Windows for Workgroups just came out like a year after I was working there. So it was very, very early on in the tech space. And I was lucky enough to get my hands on that kind of technology. And that was probably where I first started thinking about the blend of customer service and customer support and technology and what those things can do. Not only was I helping people with technology, but how can I use technology to better enable me in my job? And even then, as I, that company was acquired by CMG in London, and I ended up then working in social housing in the Southwest for one of the UK's largest housing associations, Nightstone, and that's where I met Russ, the other co-founder. He was the one that employed me there. And again, that kind of, I think between the two of us, we were in a situation where we just had access to a ton of technology, a ton of hardware and software, and we just really relished and enjoyed getting stuck in and rolling our sleeves up and just learning everything we possibly could. And going back to your earlier point about, people trying to make money as quickly as possible, we were the other way around. It was all about learning, no disrespect to people in public housing compared to public service compared to the private sector. In those days, certainly we were paid a fraction of what it might have, what we might have earned maybe in the private sector, but it didn't matter because we were just learning so much and we were just getting, absorbing so much information in terms of technology that we stayed there, for 7, 8, 9 years and really enjoyed it. And then took what we'd learned and were able to apply that to running a business or starting a business. So it was an interesting ride, but it was much later on before we really started to think about that entrepreneurial, and I wouldn't even call it entrepreneurial at the time. I think we just saw an opportunity, and we didn't have family, and didn't have mortgages, and we could take a risk, and it was an educated risk, but half good luck and half good judgment, and we went for it, and 20 years later we're still here. So it obviously paid off, but I would say it was very, I was probably in my mid to late 20s before I really started thinking about taking what I'd learned and how I could actually turn that into a business.
Yeah, and I'm wondering for you, Russ is an integral part to the business you're running now. What kind of conversations were you having over those 7, 8 years when you're working together to when you finally get to that climax moment of, hey, let's start a business together? What were those conversations like?
It was fun. I mean, we were both geeky IT kids that enjoyed comic books and Star Wars. So I mean, I'm sure you can imagine what that locker room would look like. But on the practical side and on the technology side, it was really just about how to make use of technology. So about halfway through our tenure at Nightstone, we were tasked with projects, quite big projects that we would have to run across the entire organization. And Nightstone had, I think, 13 locations over the southwest, all the way up to Chippenham, all the way down to Poole in Dorset. So a very remote kind of workforce with several hundred staff. And there was no remote control in those days. There was, if you wanted to do something, you had to get in a car, drive to Poole, stick a CD in the machine and start working on it. It was really difficult. So we were always challenging ourselves to look at technology and try and leverage technology in a way that would allow us to do our jobs more easily and the team be able to do their jobs more easily. So, for example, when we were rolling out Windows 95 from Windows to Workgroups, they had an administration kit, but most people were going around the country putting CDs or floppy disks in drives and doing, manual upgrades. And we decided, actually, let's write a software program that will automate this process for us from beginning to end for every for every computer. And then it was a case of turning up at an office and just switching on the machines and then just sitting back and waiting for this, for the magic to happen. So that was kind of the thing. Those were the things that we were trying to do on a day-to-day basis. So how could we actually simplify and certainly automate repeatable process? That was one of the big things that we were challenged with is, of the calls we're getting in and the requests we're getting in on the help desk every single day, which ones are continued, which ones are repeating things that we can hopefully solve with technology so that the customer can just solve them on their own. And to be honest, 20 years later, even now, that's kind of what Vivantio does with our customers and the way that we develop technology now and think about how customers can improve their service efficiency is how do you automate repeatable processes?
Yeah, I mean, that is something that is easy to sell. It's like, if you're selling someone a solution that's going to make their life easier and, quicker and all that kind of stuff, save them money, it's like well, of course I'm going to do that. I'm not stupid. But on day one of starting Vivantio, what did that look like for you and for Russ? Are you there, still in the full-time job, doing this thing on the side in the evenings? Or were you guys balls to the wall, let's commit, quit our jobs? Because like you said, no dependents, no mortgage, all that kind of stuff. I'm wondering what your kind of startup story was in that regard.
Yeah, so the way it worked was that for probably about a year before we actually quit our day jobs, we'd spend the evenings and weekends developing software and coding. So that kind of happened beforehand, just to try and get to the point where we had something that we thought would work. Again, we're going back to classic ASP and really first versions of that. So there was a question mark around whether the technology would even work and whether we could actually achieve this. We understood very early on about things like multi-tenant architectures and being able to have a single code base and a single, with multiple instances of databases. And we understood quite early on the impact that would have on deliverability for multiple customers, of having a single code base, because that was a big problem in those days of, we'd seen that at Nightstone, having to upgrade every PC that had Windows or had Microsoft Word on it or whatever it might be. So how could we get around that? But it wasn't a proven technology. Like I said, when we started coding this, Salesforce.com didn't exist. It was very, very early on. So we spent about a year kind of getting a POC together, checking the technology to see if we could get this to work. And then decided, we've got it. We think we understand that, but we still were maybe a year out from having minimum viable product that we could actually take out to the marketplace. So what we did is we quit our day jobs. We both handed our notice in the same week, and we went into a consulting role. I was fortunate that it was fortuitous timing, but shortly after I left, Lightstone embarked on replacing their housing management system, which is a major, multi-million-dollar implementation of a new housing management solution. And they asked me to come back as a consultant because it was such a big project to help with the architecture of the platform for that. It was a huge, big on-premise, multi-server system that needed to be implemented to manage this huge housing system. So I ended up going back consulting. Russ did a similar thing in his field, working at Mendip Housing down in the Southwest as an interim IT director. So we were working kind of 2 days, 3 days a week to help keep the lights on at home, and then spending the other 2 or 3 days continuing to develop the product and build a business and try and build a brand and websites and all the things that needed to go along with running a business. And the product. So we started Vivantio in November 2003, and we had our first sale in 2005.
Nice. That was something I was going to ask, because nowadays a lot of people think, oh, I want to start a tech company. I'm going to go raise a lot of money to get a nice office in Shoreditch, and we're going to have slides and a beer on tap and all this kind of stuff and a fridge full of sandwiches. It's going to be great. And you guys are like, look, I'm going to get this money over here and I'm going to do this and that, and I'm going to get customers eventually. Do you know what I mean? So you're completely bootstrapped, haven't raised any money at this point. Going forward from 2005, what was it like taking that first customer on, and what did you learn and what did you do, and how did you make sure that they saw the value in what you were bringing to them?
The value side was, was actually pretty easy in those days because the choice was quite limited. We were the only online service management solution or help desk. It really wasn't service management back then. It was, it was really just help desk software. We were competing against BMC and HP and CA and big Goliath companies like that with these huge, 6-figure on-premise systems. So it was like a really, I wouldn't call it fire and forget, but these are companies that were able to just, buy Vivantio, and if it didn't work after a year, just switch to something else. It was a very, it was an entry-level solution. Obviously, it's evolved over time and to what it is today, but in those days, it was very simple. So we took on a lot of customers really, really quickly, to be honest, and it grew quite fast. The flip side to that, when you are bootstrapped, is the building up, recurring revenue over that time. It takes a long time. It's 12 months before you get more revenue from a customer. And so, we didn't have the money that we could put into marketing, sales, engineering, and all the other things that you would do if you actually, got Series A funding or angel funding from the outset. So it was a slow and long process, but it was fine. It was a lifestyle business. We didn't have a problem with that. We didn't want the risk of investors breathing down our necks. We liked the fact that we were in control of our own destinies. And, if we didn't want to work the next day, we didn't work the next day. As long as our customers were getting support and happy, then that was fine. So for 5 or 6 years, that was the way we ran the business. And then it was in 2010/11 that we decided to kind of mix things up a bit. So up until that point, as I mentioned before, sales and marketing was not really our forte. We didn't really have that experience. We were engineers at heart, and customer service was really our focus. So we outsourced that. We looked for channel partners that could manage the sales element in particular of the organization. But we realized after 5 or 6 years that those organizations were making a lot more money than we were, because of the professional services we were starting to add on, because of the license revenue they were getting year on year. And it just felt like it was out of balance. We weren't really getting the recognition that we needed, and we weren't getting the revenue we needed to really help build a business. So we flipped the model. We decided to bring it all in-house internally. And, after a year of doing that, that actually gave us the funds and the money to help us, move over to the US, which is where I'm based now, and start to, set up the organization here and build out a team in the US.
Yeah, I mean, multinational expansion is something that I'm not sure I've had a founder or a CEO on the podcast who's been doing that. So I'm really curious, talk to me about the process of deciding to go over to the US and, that first day for you, boots on the ground. Who did you take with you? What did you take with you? And, how long have you been out there? You said 12 years, actually.
Yes, 12 years,
Yeah.
yeah. If I get that right, 12 years, 2011, that's right. So the decision at the time, I think, again, it stems back to my roots. Like as I mentioned at the start, I grew up in Saudi, and we traveled around a bit before settling in the southwest. Lived in Ireland for a year, and then moved over to Wales, and then down into the southwest of England. And so I kind of had that in my blood, and then obviously the entrepreneurship. And by this time, I had 5-year-old twins. My wife and I had 5-year-old twins. And I kind of saw, we didn't know, how long we would be here. We just thought there's an opportunity to go to the US for a year on a 1-year visa, and start open the office, get the staff in, and then potentially move back. A 1-year visa was all we'd be able to obtain from the US at the time. And we just saw it as an opportunity. The kids were young enough that it didn't really impact them. We weren't sort of dragging them out from school and things like that you might do with slightly older kids. And I just thought that them seeing that, and for us as well, it was just an opportunity to go and live and do something, in another country and experience a different culture and a different, and a different place. And that's what we did. We landed boots on the ground. We had a lot of help getting there. The UK TI, UK Trade and Industry, were really, really helpful in helping us find people in the US that could help support the business as it moved over. So they put us in contact, for example, with relocation specialists who, within day 2 of landing here, had us in the back of cars, driving us, around the Metro West area of Boston, looking for rental properties for me and the family. And they put us in contact with, with lawyers and accountants and things like that could help us get the business set up and get the company registered and things like that. So they were hugely helpful in the very early days. And it's a bit like starting the business. It just, looking back on it now, it just happened so fast. I remember, I think it was something like the July of 2011, we finally got the green light from the US Customs and Border Protection to say, yeah, your application has been approved. And by the end of September, we'd redecorated the entire house, put it out for rent, moved all the furniture, stuck it on a transport carrier to bring over to a shipping container to bring to the US, and had jumped on an airplane. It just happened so fast. It was just once we found out, we just went for it. But like I said, been here ever since. We were fortunate to get the visas renewed year after year, and for the 5 years, and then managed to get our green cards, and then last year actually got our US citizenship, dual citizenship. So yeah, love it here.
Wow, that is such a kind of efficient process that you can kind of contact an agency here and they contact some people over there, and then it's kind of like a white glove handheld service of like, we're going to take you around here, give you this, give you that. It's because I guess they want the business there because it helps to grow their country, doesn't it?
Yeah, so for the UK TI, I can't remember the exact figure now, but it was something like for every dollar they invest in an organization that goes abroad to set up in the US, they get the UK economy gets $8 back.
Oh, nice.
So they actually saw, UK companies that were actually trading internationally brought a huge amount of revenue back into the UK. So there's a lot of support and a lot of help for organizations that were willing to try and kind of make that leap. And of course, they had counterparts in the US that they worked with that then built networks of people to help support that. And I'm one of those now in that network. I'm not officially, but through the law firm that I work with, I get introductions to other organizations that are looking to move to the US, and their CEOs are trying to reach out to other CEOs who've made that transition. And I have this exactly the same conversation with them in terms of what it was like, not just professionally, but personally as well. What was it like moving to Boston to another country and so on. So obviously I'm sort of paying it back now for others, or paying it forward for others that are going through that same process today.
Nice. Well, we've got kind of like an understanding of who you are, Greg. But one thing that I've kind of skipped over because I was so interested in just hearing this story is what Vivantio is, what it does, how it does it, and why it's better than what's out there.
So essentially, Vivantio is an enterprise service management platform for the B2B service and support mid-market. So if you think about a typical call coming into a call center or to a support center, those agents are using a product like Vivantio to take that call, to understand what the issue is, to make all the relevant notes, and to ask the customer questions or whatever that might be, record that, and then making sure that goes out to the people that can actually solve that issue and that it gets solved in time. In the B2B arena, that becomes quite complex because obviously you're typically working with your customers, or those people are working with their customers. So things like service level agreements and support contracts are very important in making sure that you're dealing with those requests, within your contractual time, agreements that you have with your customers. So it can get very complex. And obviously the types of requests that those people are logging are typically quite complicated as well. They require lots of people to get involved. Change process or change management process can sometimes be kicked off. So it's, in the B2B space, it can be quite complicated. And, where we sort of differentiate is in two areas. One is that we allow organizations to scale, but we kind of democratize the technology. So, a lot of the enterprise solutions that are out there today require engineers or people from IT to help configure, maintain, and look after those systems for those customer services teams. Whereas at Vivantio, we built even from day one from ground zero, a highly configurable application. So it's designed by us to allow end users to maintain and configure those systems themselves. They're not relying on external support, not even from us to a certain degree in terms of maintaining that system going forward. So whilst we help them set it up, once they're up and running, they can run with it. And the other is just the scalability. We have functionality that allows people, like you mentioned before, to be more efficient, to think about automating repeatable processes, to try and take away a lot of manual labor from, what is or what can be quite complicated workflows and business processes, organizations. Automation and AI is playing a big part in that now for us as well. But ultimately, the big impact that it has on organizations is that it allows them to provide a better experience to their customers, which goes, again, full-fold to like why I do what I do. It's about customer service. How can we develop products and services that our customers can use to provide, a better service to their customers, and that's really the way I think about it. So, service experience or customer experience is a big part of what it is that we do, and making sure that we provide the best possible solution to those customers, and that has a big impact on B2B organizations. And especially in a modern age, and we've seen it even more over the last few years, that organizations that put customer services at the top of their, or within the center of their organization, but really think about customer service as a growth engine, are the ones that really succeed. It has a big impact on the renewals. It has a big impact on customer advocacy and what that means as it relates to, winning new business and so on. So a lot of time and effort over the last few years in particular has been put on organizations to provide service to make sure that the service they offer their customers is top notch.
Yeah. And then as the CEO, how do you maintain a focus on customer service while still prioritizing, the technology side, which is the bulk of what you're doing is technology for customer service?
Yeah, so I think it's been really interesting, and I think it's been a slight, well, maybe it's not good luck. I think it's just inherent in the fact that me and Russ had this background, but as we've grown, what's happened is that because of the type of organization that we are and the values that we have and the type of service and the type of customers that we service, we've ended up employing people that share those same values. We have an organization that is very customer-centric. They really put the customer at the heart of everything that they do, and they really think, about the impact that they have on customers, right from engineering all the way through to our own service and support teams. And so by having, an organization that is founded based on customer service, it just oozes out of the organization. It's just something we do. It's not something we think about. It's just innate. It's just something that we do. That's how we live our lives, and that has a really positive impact on the way that the relationship we have with our customers. So we have customers that stay with us for long periods of time, and what it does allow us to do is then focus more on the technology, making sure that actually when we're developing solutions, we're developing things that continue to help our organization, our customers provide better service to their customers. So it's, one is a natural occurrence in terms of customer service and the way that we deal with our customers, which allows us to then focus on the technology and how we can harness that technology to provide better solutions.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier about AI, and AI is something that, whether you like it or not, it's on the tip of everyone's tongue.
It's around us there,
yeah. Everybody wants to know about how can I AI with this? How can I do this with AI? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm wondering for Vivantio, what does AI look like? What does it look like on an integration side, and how does that benefit the product?
Yeah, so there are an absolute load of areas that we've been looking at, but a few are kind of like bubbled up to the top in terms of the ones that we think that will have the most immediate benefit and impact to our customers, and that's what we're working on developing now. And there's two. One is kind of more customer focused and relies on like self-service technologies. So for organizations that are going into a self-service portal to log a request for help or a request for service or whatever that might be, it's been able to prompt, whether through chat or whether through scripting, scripting technologies, ask the customer more information about what it is they're trying to get support for, and be very predictive about the types of questions that we ask, and then using that information to look right across the company's knowledge base, using generative AI to come back, not with, here's a list of 20 articles that you could read that might solve your problem, but actually based on everything we've read, this, I think, is a concise solution to what it is that you're asking for. Go and try that. So that does one thing. That cuts down the amount of work that comes into the service desk. So you're relieving the stress on the agents that are actually fielding that, and you're not having to do any triage whatsoever. But secondly, what it also does is that if it doesn't solve the problem, you've managed to use AI and kind of predictive analysis to capture a huge amount of information that at least the workflow engine in Vivantio can then use to route that information to the right service team. So in large organizations or enterprise organizations where you've got multiple service teams and multiple departments, we can use that information to make sure that it actually bypasses triage altogether and just goes straight to the teams, whether it's one or many, that can actually solve that problem. So that there are a couple of benefits there. And then the other is on the agent side. And one of the things that we've realized or heard over the last couple of years is that there's this huge technical debt within technology at the moment. There's just not enough jobs. There's too many jobs and not enough people to fill the technical requirements for most organizations. And so, that has a big impact on service teams. And what they're finding now is that they just don't have enough people to service the amount of customers that they have, or if it's internal IT, the employees they have in that organization. So there's a huge amount of strain and on agents and service professionals these days. They're having to do more with less. And so we've tried to address that by doing a couple of things. One is, like I said, through self-service technologies, can we actually stop stop these requests coming in the first place and allow the customers to help themselves to a certain degree to reduce that burden? And the other is, if they do come in, what can we provide the agent in terms of, again, predictive AI during a real-time conversation or during triage that can kind of expedite that process and help them get to the solution faster. So again, similarly, as we said before, present them with potential solutions to problems, look at what's happening across the organization or to other customers that are maybe being impacted by similar things, and try and gather information that can allow them to make decisions more quickly, and so on. But and of course, on the back of that, as we're seeing this sort of deficit or debt in terms of technical resource, it is meaning that new people are coming into organizations as well. And again, how can we train those people and get them to be more productive more quickly? It typically takes 6 months for somebody to get into an organization on a service and support team and become productive in understanding the technologies and the customers and so on. And what we're trying to do with Vivantio and using AI is like, can we reduce that down to 2 or 3 months by, again, delivering them the information they need in real time to allow them to answer questions without having to go off and do all that research that would normally take place.
I love the way that your focus for your business is actually improving the product, not to increase revenue, it's to improve the customer or client experience. Because I think a lot of people, especially when they get to your level, where it's like, if we increase the price by £1, we've made an extra 100 grand a month. It's like, let's not do that. Let's let's improve the product. So I'm wondering for you, when you're going about your day-to-day, working life as the CEO of this company, what is it that you're looking for in your team, in the people that you hire? What is your kind of mission for inside the business, outside of, the actual tech, with the people?
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying before. Really, it really is about helping our customers help their customers. And being customer centric. That's really how we think about the business. And it goes back. There's film analogies and all sorts of things. If you build it, they will come, and all that kind of stuff, and Field of Dreams. And it's a similar sort of thing, I suppose. If we can build an organization that is known throughout the industry, not only for like its great customer service, but also the great technology that it provides to allow other people to provide great customer service, it will naturally, to a certain degree, it will naturally take care of itself. I try not to get too worked up about growth. We're not a huge organization. We're still relatively small compared to our competitors. But we have a strong organization. We have really great loyal customers. We have a really great team. And so not focusing on the bottom line means I can focus on providing great service and support and providing great technology. And that's the sort of thing that gets me out of bed in the morning. Not how can I make a quick buck today, but like how can I help other people help their customers. And like I said, that kind of filters right through the organization here at Vivantio, and others feel and work in the same way. So that's kind of the driving force behind it.
Yeah, I like that. And nowadays a lot of people will start a tech company and run it for 3-4 years and then try to sell it on to somebody else, or as they term it, have an exit moment. But you've been running this business for nearly 20 years, or just about 20 years. What is your kind of future plans with Vivantio? Is it have an exit moment, or is it run this as long as possible and grow it as big as possible? Like, there's so many different avenues to have with a tech company. I'm just wondering what your kind of future goals are.
Yeah, so there's a couple. So one, like I mentioned, up until 2015 or 16, it was a lifestyle business. We've never shied away from saying that. It was fine. It absolutely worked perfectly for Russ and I. And that's when Russ had to leave the business. He due to ill health, he decided to take some time out and jump on a motorbike and just travel around Europe. He's still in great health now, fortunately, but he had to step out. And that was a bit of a shell shock for me, having worked with him at Nightstone for 10 years and then 15 years at Vivantio. He's the godfather to our kids and, very, very close friend. It was and he'd moved out to America by that point as well, living in the same town. So we're, very close. That was a big transition moment for me and the business. And it was difficult, got to say. 2 years of what do I do now, kind of moment, and took kind of a long time to sort of settle into a role where, I didn't have that confidant with Russ and that relationship there anymore. And a number of things happened, and they all happened for the right reasons. One is I lent in more to our COO Andy, who again he'd been with us. He's employee number 3, and he'd been with us for almost from the start. And tried to build that same relationship with Andy that I'd had with Russ from a professional and personal perspective. And the other was that I sort of lent into the Boston ecosystem. So I put together a small trusted advisory board, and one of the first things they suggested is I need to get into like a Vistage or a CEO peer-to-peer group. So I joined a Vistage group here in Boston, which gave me access to a CEO coach, and we meet once a month with a bunch of other CEOs, 15 to 20 other CEOs of varying organizations, where there's training, and there's people come in and do sort of motivational talking, speaking, and things like that, and then the afternoons are spent doing issue solving for each other, trying to help each other's business succeed. And it was after about 6 months to a year of that, I really started to think differently about Vivantio and about what we could do as an organization. As I said, we've got a great customer base, we have a great team, and we have a great product. And go back to what I said before about if they build it, if we build it, they will come. It's like, well, then we should share this with as many people as possible. We shouldn't just sit back and just wait for people to come to us. We should be going out there, and because there is a value to be had in using a product like ours, and we feel passionate about that, and so we should go and tell as many people as possible. And we should think about what our growth strategy looks like. And it wasn't the sort of thing that happened overnight, but it was in a short period of time that I the switch went off in my head that said, right, lifestyle business to growth mindset, and what could we really do with this organization? And that's really the last 2 years have been focused on growth. That's really what we've really sort of lent into. So whilst we haven't taken on any institutional investment yet, we did take on a small amount of debt to help us with our growth strategy, and we took on, our staff numbers went up 30-40% over that period, and we brought more engineering teams in, customer success managers, more in sales and marketing, and we are now in the process of looking for institutional finance. So we will hopefully by the end of next year be in a situation where we're ready to take on some sort of equity in an effort to grow the business and to get our products and services to as many customers that we possibly can. And beyond that, I don't know. We have a plan to try and get to 20 million in the next 3 years. That's I don't want to think beyond that. I think we need to set a realistic time frame. That's looking at 40% growth over the next 3 years to get us to that point, which is an achievable number. And we think that raising some equity and getting some more people behind us to help us achieve that goal is realistic. And then beyond that, we'll see. But I'm still opportunistic. I don't like to think too far ahead. If we can go for an IPO in the future, fantastic. There's an exit, then that's great too. But at the moment, I'm really enjoying what I do, and I think Vivantio has a lot to do over the next few years to get to that point, and then we'll see.
Yeah. And, again, you're in such a great position that you've got a tech company that's been going for such a long time, bootstrapped as well. To look to raise finance now, you're in a much better position where you probably won't have to give away too much equity. You've already got a proven concept, all that kind of stuff, which is so amazing. But one thing you mentioned just a second ago was about your peer group that you're in, the group with other CEOs. And I know someone who runs a mastermind or something equivalent to that, and it's
same thing.
It's about £10,000 a year, and for that money, or I thought it was, I don't know how much it is now. It might be £10,000 a year. Don't quote me on it, but it's a sizable sum for the average person. But they deliver value that is in excess of that. And so I'm wondering, for someone like yourself, what is it that you feel like you get out of being part of this mastermind peer group that you meet with once a month? What is it that's the value that keeps you going back? Because you said you've been there for 2 years.
Yeah, I've been doing it 2 years now. There's a number of things because it's quite varied. So like I said, each session or every other session, they typically bring in some sort of external speaker that talks about everything, and it's all to do with C-suite. So that can be anything from building out a hiring process to implementing EOS, which we've done, which is like this entrepreneurial operating system, which is like a business process management tool that we use internally now for managing our growth goals, to how to raise finance, to economic sessions and things like that. So there's a ton of, and of course these people are in the room, so we can ask questions, we can probe, and and so on. So that in itself is a benefit, and you wouldn't get access to that very easily externally. But then the big thing for me is the issue sort of processing that we do in the afternoon. So we're looking for issues and opportunities that exist within members of the group, and having other people that have experienced that, have already gone through that, to be able to help you solve those business challenges or business pains that you currently have at the time. And that in itself, speaking to other CEOs and entrepreneurs who have potentially had something like what you're going through and can offer advice in that setting is invaluable. Yeah, it's just, I can either try and figure it out on my own for weeks or months or years, or I can go and speak to a bunch of people that have experienced this before, listen to their advice. I don't have to take it, but at least their advice is there to be listened to, and then, put that in practice. And that, And again, because I lost Russ, it was like, how do I fill that as well? How do I have somebody where I have an idea that maybe I don't want to bring to the business yet? I want to open up in Asia Pacific. Is that a good idea or not? These are the reasons why I think it's a good idea. But has anybody else gone through this? What does it look like? To your point earlier, moving to America, it's a big upheaval, and it's. Can I fast track that by having conversations with people that have actually got that experience already? And that just moves things along more quickly.
Yeah. I mean, and America is one of the biggest populations in the world. Like, obviously the step down is, 1 billion in China, 1 billion in India. But then it's like America's right there. And you think to yourself, what the hell? But that's why there's so many big businesses out there that, aren't multinationals. Because like we've got a lot of people over here that we can serve. And, as they say, America's the land of the free, home of the brave, and they have a dream or some, I don't know, they got a whole bunch of stuff going on over there, which is fantastic. But yeah, I mean, it's great to hear that you're learning and growing through a peer group, but I'm pretty sure that someone like yourself also does a lot of independent learning, and I'm wondering where someone like yourself does that kind of learning, because, the IT, tech, even customer, care sector 20 years ago is nowhere near what it is now. Like, obviously AI was not even a thought in anyone's mind. It's a thought in people's minds now. So yeah, where do you do your learning and how do you do it?
Number of places. If I'm honest, I'm not a big book reader. I prefer, small snippets of information, reports and guides, and read a lot of news and things like that to kind of gather, what's going on in the tech space. That's kind of like a consume in that way. But one of the big areas over the last couple of years where I've done the vast majority of my research is through analysts. So, and I dig in deep there. So I've been part of the Gartner CEO Startup Program now for the last 2 years. That gives me access to all of the Gartner analysts in the tech space here in the US and in the UK, and gives me access to all of the Gartner reports as well, everything that gets released. And it's vast. I know people know about Magic Quadrants and things like that, but there's an absolute vast array of reports that these analysts publish on a weekly basis that I get access to. Similar to Forbes and McKinsey and things like that, we get access to those reports, to which gives us an understanding of what's happening within the market. What are the analysts seeing? They're the ones that are talking to our potential customers. They're the ones that are talking to our competitors and other vendors, and they're bringing that information together. And that's a really fast way to kind of expedite some of the validation that we need to do to understand about where we need to pivot or what's coming next, or looking at hype cycles and things like that in terms of technology. What are the upcoming things that are happening? What are they seeing on the horizon, and so on. So that's really where I've spent most of my time. And then it's just surrounding myself with the team. We have really great people in customer service, in customer support, in product development, engineering. They are all doing their own research in terms of what's happening within their own fields. And we meet once every other week. And, we actually run those sessions, as part of the EOS process. It's called a level 10, but it's a very like the Vistage sessions that we have, where we're issue processing. So, we go into those meetings where we talk about what are our rocks for this quarter. What are we trying to achieve this quarter to get to our annual goal? And then we look at issues and opportunities, and we work together to try and solve those. But part of that is educating me educating others on what is happening within their relative space. So we have a deeper understanding about holistically, what are we seeing in the marketplace? What are the opportunities and what are the risks that are presenting themselves at any given time? So yeah, for me, it's like I said, Gartner's been a big one for me, and the rest of the time it's really reading the news, tech news, and so on.
Okay. And what are the risks right now for your sector? What are the things that the analysts are like, hey, keep an eye on this?
So a couple of things. One is the economy as a whole. I'm certainly not an economist, but I can speak to 5 different economists and get 5 different answers at the moment, it seems. So of course, that is part of the risk of the actual unknown. No one's able to predict exactly what's going to happen over this next 12 months, and so I had to kind of prepare for that, both mentally and financially, to make sure that we ride that storm. We did go through the recession in 2008, and we managed to ride that successfully, but that was through careful planning and making sure that we had enough runway to get us through that process. And we're fortunate, of course, that we have a product and service that is key to a lot of organizations. So that's a positive thing. And then the other, I suppose, is thinking about the technology space. One is AI and the impact that has on tech. But I think also our buyers are changing, certainly in the service and support world. And product-led growth is something that a lot of enterprise organizations are starting to think about now. Most buyers are looking for products and services that they can deploy more easily. They're not looking for these big Goliath heavy lifting systems that take 6 to 12 months to implement, and then, like I said, require engineers to maintain systems going forward. They're looking for things that they can have more control over, because they're finding that in other solutions in the marketplace today, even at the enterprise level. And I think that's one of the areas that we feel that we need to adapt over the next year, maybe 18 months, to make sure that, I talked about the fact that we were highly configurable, but even getting to the point where almost it's self-installable. You don't even potentially need to rely on professional services to actually get you up and running. It's more self-service. I think is something that we need to start considering as we continue to develop the technology.
Nice. Well, Greg, we're in a great place now where we've kind of got this understanding of how your business runs, who you are, and what you're doing to kind of grow and expand. But something that I haven't really asked you about, because it's something that I like to say to the end, just for me, is, out of all the things that you do, what is it that brings you the most joy?
I think, it's two things. I'll say two things. One is reading reviews on Sheet 2 about our company. So, hearing about how, we ask customers, and again, we don't filter it. We just ask our customers to go and, fill in these review sites. And, when people actually make the effort to do that, and then I read the things that they write about us, very heartwarming. It feels like that's the reward that I like to get back from hearing from customers about a positive experience. That's one. And the other is just the innovation. That's again is the thing that gets me out of bed every day, is just like, how can we continue to innovate? How can we continue to sort of shape technology? How can we stay ahead of the curve in terms of what it is that we're doing? I would like to spend, going to your point earlier about an exit. I don't see myself exiting, but I do see myself maybe in the future doing a Bill Gates and kind of stepping back maybe from the leadership role into more of a CTO role, and getting back to thinking about the technology side of the business. That's the thing that excites me. And like I said, go back to almost the beginning, harnessing technology and customer services and thinking about how we can bring those two things together. I'd love to spend more of my time being able to do that on a day-to-day basis than I do today. So those are kind of the two things I really sort of hone in on.
Where can the people find you online?
So a few places. So you can check us out on the website, vivantio.com. That's vivantio.com. Fire an email to info@vivantio.com. That'll land in my inbox. And obviously you can check us out on LinkedIn. We have a profile there, linkedin.com/Vivantio. And again, we post a ton of stuff. A huge amount of resource goes out every week, a couple of posts every week in terms of customer service and support best practices, things about, to help improve service delivery, service efficiency, and things like that. So again, subscribe to our newsletter through our website, or join our LinkedIn company page, and you can get access to that information too.
Thank you for listening to People Explained. New episodes come out every Monday. We would appreciate it if you gave us a review on Apple Podcasts and shared this episode with a friend.